here, this is chapter 12, and I'd like to make it move. There we are, text analysis and generation. And this is actually kind of useful to understand some of the concepts used by large language models. So we're going to take a book, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because it's out of copyright. You can easily download the entire book as a text file. So this is going to download it from Project Gutenberg. And then that includes some extra information at the beginning and the end. It has some extra lines that were not included in the book, and they all start with 3 stars and a space. So we can remove the special lines and make a clean file that include only the lines that don't start with 3 stars. And so we can write take the input, which came from there, and write it into a file called drjekyll.txt that's only going to include the actual lines in the book, not the special lines at the start. So now we can split the lines into words and store each word as a key in a dictionary. So we'll have, find there's 6,000 and a few more words in this book. Now, if you inspect them, you'll see some of the words are not valid. This is going to sort by length and show us the 5 longest words. And the 5 longest words you see are, some of them are, this one is actually a dashed word, which maybe you want to accept chocolate colored. This is probably that's a hyphenated word, but this is actually a dash word. I normally see it written as dash dash or long dash. And then there are things in here like exclamation points and periods, which are really not part of the word, but are certainly being considered part of it. So we want to deal with that, dashes and punctuation. So if a dash appears, we want to replace it with a space. So the words will be separated, and we want to get rid of all the punctuation. So here's how you split a line. We're going to replace all dashes with spaces and then split it. All right. So here's an example. Coolness frightened is going to turn into coolness and frightened. Now to remove the punctuation, we can use strip, but we need to know the punctuation characters. It turns out Unicode is our friend here. Unicode has a thing called Unicode data, a module that provides a category function, which will show you the category of this is letter, and I think U is uppercase. So if you now look at a period, it'll tell you that is punctuation, and the O means its category is other. So all we have to do is find things with categories that begin with a capital P. So this will find all the unique punctuation marks in a dictionary. It will find the category, and if it starts with P, it will mark it. So this will create a, so you feed in, and I guess we read the file, we read everything in the file name, and I think file name is our cleaned up words. We found all the punctuation marks that are in there, and here they are. These are the punctuation marks that were in there. So now we can strip, we're going to take a word, strip punctuation from the beginning and the end, and convert it to lowercase. That's what this will do. Yes, all right. And so, quote, behold, exclamation point, close quote, will clean into just behold. So that's handy. All right. And it leaves that leaves hyphenated words alone. All right. All right. So here's a loop that uses split line and clean word to identify the unique words in the book. And now there's only 4,000 unique words. We got 6,000 before because there were these words with punctuation or dashes in them, dashes, not hyphens, which led to these artificial extra words that weren't really unique words. All right. So now we can sort it and see what the longest words are. And here's now the longest words. And all of these are pretty good words. All right. With no punctuation marks. Now we can count how many times each word is used. So we've done this before. For each line, you split it and clean it. And now if the word is not in the dictionary, you add it with a 1. If it is in the dictionary, you increment the count by 1. So we'll now get a list of all the words and how many times they appear. And to see which words appear most often, we can use items and sort them by the second item of the pair. So we use this function that gives you the second element. And now we can call it with the key equals second element. And while we're at it, we're going to reverse it to put the most common items first instead of at the other end, just for handy, make it more easy. So now we can print the first 5, and there they are, the most common words, just like you'd expect the, and, of, to, and I. That's usually what your most common words will be in English. All right, So now you can have optional parameters. We've used them before. For example, if you round something off, you can tell it how many digits you want to round it off to. But if you don't specify how many digits to round it off to, it will assume some value, which I think is 2 places. Yeah, or no places, round it off to the integer. So you can define your functions with parameters. All you have to do is assign values to them. So I take word counter and num, but the equals 5 means if you don't include num, it'll assume 5. This will print the most common number of items. And so you can print the most common, and it'll give you the 5 most common words, but you could also put in a number here, like 10, and get the 10 most common. All right. All right, so second item, there's 3 most common. All right, so now if it has required and optional parameters, all the required ones have to come first, followed by the optional ones. You can't rearrange them in this order. It won't take it. That's kind of a gotcha. All right, so we want to check a book. Now what we're going to do is try to find the misspelled words. So we're going to try and get a list of acceptable English words and then see how many words in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are not in the list of known English words. So we download a list of words here, which I think is just a list of words used by Scrabble players or something, but it's a dictionary of some sort. And now we can do the same thing, split it up into a list of strings. And then we can store those as keys in a dictionary. All the values are going to be 1 because we really don't care about counting them or anything. We just want to have an easily sortable list. The dictionaries, remember, are extremely efficient at looking up the values because it hashes them and turns them into an efficient hash table. So a dictionary is a data structure that lets you look through a long list of items and check to see if something is in there very quickly. So now we can take the 2 lists here, and we're going to find this is going to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is going to be the dictionary, and we're going to find items that are in here but not in there. So they are words that appear in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but not in the dictionary, and therefore are perhaps misspelled. So we try all the words in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and we only keep the ones that are not in the dictionary, and then save them in this dictionary called res. So we subtract the 2, that function, and that gives us the diff, and here's the most common elements of diff. These are the things that aren't in the dictionary. So I and A aren't in there, probably because they would have to be capitalized to be in the dictionary. That's not surprising. Utterson and Mr. Hyde, these are names. And Mr., I guess, doesn't appear. It's that dictionary may not include that sort of thing. Anyway, these are not misspelled, and Utterson is somebody's name. If we select words that appear only once, they're more likely to be misspelling, so we can go through the items and make a list of words with frequency 1 in the original dictionary. And here's the last few elements on that list. And what they are is just unusual English words, which were not in there. This one here looks like it's actually misspelled. Probably residue or reinduce or something. Anyway, so that's fine. Now, if you want to understand how large language models work, they work by randomly varying the output. Now, when real humans talk, they don't just, if you ask them a question like, what's the color of the sky? They don't just repeat words from the question. They understand the question and find some words that are associated with the question, like some attempt to answer it. And that's what large language models will do, but without understanding anything. So they will take the words in your question and they will guess what words are likely to follow that in taking a bunch of data off the web, of what words are likely to come after those words. And so they'll have a probability of various words coming. And if you use the greedy algorithm, where you always take the most likely word every time, then they quickly get stuck in a passive loop of like 3 or 4 words and run around in a circle, and they don't look like a human. So you put in some random variation where the large language models have a chance of choosing the most likely word, but some chance of choosing the second or third most likely word, and therefore they sort of meander through a series of phrases, and it looks more like text that was written by a human that actually had some thought behind it, which it does not have. And so this is just a way of cheating on the Turing test, making a page of text that will look like a human wrote it. But in order to do that, you have to have a random probability of doing things, and for that you need a random number. So what computers use is pseudo-random numbers, where you start from a seed and then you do a mathematical calculation based on that seed value that creates a predictable series of numbers, but it is not predictable from the values. You can only predict it by knowing the seeds. You can import random and random seed of 4, and now you'll get random values here. Now you could use the random choice, which will choose one item out of the list for you. So it'll choose 1, call it again. It'll choose 2. It'll choose each time with replacement a random item from that list. So if you use it with a dictionary, you're not allowed to do that though. You can't choose a random item in a dictionary. You'd have to put it in a list, and then you can get a random word. So now we can generate random words. Now if we just put random words out, they don't make any sense because we haven't bothered to choose words that belong in this order, that have been observed in this order. So we haven't figured out that nouns should be followed by verbs and things like that. So what you can do is you can choose the likelihood of words and have weights, and then you can weight your probability. So you're more likely to choose more common words. So you can now select a bunch of common words, and if you do that, you'll get it looks a little bit more like a sentence, but it still doesn't really make any sense because you haven't included any difference between nouns and verbs, words pairs that should appear in a certain order. So those are called bigrams. So you can count the bigrams. This is going to take a list of 2 strings. First, it makes a tuple of the 2 strings, and then it adds the key to a bigram. So it's going to consider this word followed by that word. All right. And so you're going to keep track of each pair of consecutive words. You see man is not truly one. You would have man is not truly, and so on. You take each pair of words and make a tuple. This is the first, this is the second. So we're going to keep track of, given the first word, how likely the second word is. So we process the words one at a time and add them here to put them in your bigram. And now we loop through the words in the book and process them one at a time to count the bigrams, I think. And now we get a dictionary that maps from each bigram to the number of time it appears. So we can see the most common bigrams are of the, in the, it was, and the, to the. So as you can see, now we're going to have things a little bit more like a sentence written by a human. It's going to choose words that are likely to come after the previous word. So now we can have our random number generator go and pick, I guess, 6 words here, it looks like. And here's the results there. To suggest this preface to detain fact is above all the laboratory. So it's still not very much like English, but it's getting a little better. All right. So you can do better with Markov chain text analysis, which is computes for each word in a text a list of words that come next. So here's a Monty Python song, and we're going to make a dictionary that maps from each word to the list of words that follow it. So we start with the 2 words of the song, half A, okay. And if the first word, we have to add a new item, maps the first word to a list containing the second word, or we can look it up to get a list of successors and append the new one. So it's going to show a map of possible successors. Let's see how this looks. I got to do this, and then this, okay. So half, this is the first, there's the successor. Now if we have this, now we're going to have half, could be either one of these, could be words that follow half, okay. So this will encapsulate all that. And the second word is added more than once, so it keeps track of how many times each one appears. So we can process the words in the song. And here's the results. Okay, so half can be followed by these words, A can be followed by those words, and that on. So now we have a variety of words choosable after each one. And now we can use this technique to analyze the book, which is again only going to look one word ahead, but it's going to list all the possible things that come afterwards. We can look up any word and find the words that can follow it. So we'll print some of them. There you are. So story could be handled by any of these, incident by any of those, and so on. All right. And so going could be followed by east or in or to. To is pretty common, up, of. All right. And so now you can generate text with the same relationship between consecutive words as the original. Choose one at random, and you'll have the same probability as in the original text. So now we can start with the word although, and all these are possible words to come after it. Now we can use choice to choose each element with equal probability. And we can now create a longer series. So now we get continue to hesitate and swallowed the smile withered from that. So again, you know, this is the process used to create words that begin to sound a little bit like a human was talking about it, but since you only look one word ahead, it's not very good. And in real large language models, you not only do this, but you also take whole sentences and make each sentence follow a sentence before it and choose a more likely sentence to follow it. So you create a long range structure as well as this short range structure. All right, and that's how large language models pass the Turing test by making text that appears to be written by a human. All right, that's enough of this.